You're watching the Sports Central Showdown.
All right, welcome everyone to the Sports Central Showdown. Today's topic, what is the most unbreakable record in sports? To break it down for you, we have Graham Metzker, Alex Hutton. Guys, go for it.
Jamie, I can kick this one off. For the most unbreakable record in sports, I'm going with Cy Young's 511 career wins. I mean, just to put that in the modern context, we're having debates these days whether we'll ever see anyone get to 300 wins again as a pitcher. And to tack on 211 more to that, it's hard to imagine that anyone is ever going to get there again. And it's hard to imagine that anything kind of matches up to that standard of just how much of a gap there is between what he was able to do and what we now have as the modern standard.
Alex, could we really go any other direction with this than a Wilt Chamberlain stat? I mean, the guy wrote the book on Unbreakable, Unfathomable. You have to record this to believe this type of stuff. I could have said his 100-point game could be here, even though we just saw Bam Adebayo trying his best, getting pretty close recently. But the stat that stands out the most to me is from the 1961-62 NBA season, where Wilt Chamberlain averaged 48.5 minutes per game. And no, I did not misspeak. I am aware there are 48 minutes in an NBA basketball game. That is including overtime as well. He never took a minute out of a game. The only time he left a game early was when he got ejected against his future team, the Lakers. Alex, I would say, although that pitching record is certainly up there, it's very mighty, we are seeing more and more pitchers, especially, come into the league at a very, very young age. Just a few seasons ago, we saw Paul Skeens rocket right up as a rookie into the majors. And so I think as these players, these rookies get younger and younger, we could see a better chance of a pitcher having that long career. And Skeens is as good a candidate as anybody. I can't think of a candidate in the NBA right now, in this edition of the NBA, where guys are missing games for a paper cut. I could not see someone not missing a minute of a game in a season.
Graham, I'd like to do a little bit of math for you here. I worked this out a few minutes ago. To get to 511
yes, I'm a love
Out
this.
the calculator.
Oh, yeah.
I love this.
I pulled out my phone, pulled out the calculator app, and here's what I figured out. To get to 511 wins, a pitcher would need to average about 26 wins a year for 20 consecutive seasons. Last time we had a pitcher with more than 21 wins in a season was 2016. So think about the kind of numbers a pitcher would have to get there. Even for as good as Paul Skeens is and as young as these players are coming into the league, asking them to average a little under 26 wins a season for 20 consecutive years, especially with as hard as these pitchers throw these days. Tommy John surgery is on the rise, and there's a lot more sort of load management in pitchers maybe not going the full 5 innings to be even eligible for a win in the first place. Asking them to average that many wins for that long, we're gone from the days where the pitchers threw complete games every single game. We're a long way removed from that. So I think in the era of sort of load management, you talk about load management for basketball. How about load management for pitchers? That's its own whole thing. I think, as sports science continues to make even further strides, we'll see even more of that, which makes it even tougher.
Alex, when you bring up the Tommy John surgery, it makes me think of how much longer Sandy Koufax's career would have been if he just would have had some of the modern science and capabilities of aiding, pitchers' shoulders and elbows. How many more games, how much closer would he have gotten to that record? There are so many people before that would have been ready to try and break it, but I think that we're only seeing more and more improvements in the medical field of baseball to help these pitchers keep on going. Certainly, managers are very careful with their young arms and they won't let them go complete games. But for this one, they don't need a complete game. They just need that win. So I think a young pitcher in the right situation with maybe a more aggressive manager could be the thing. And the reason why I say that Wilt's record in this specific case is harder to break is because it's such a small margin of error. If Paul Skeens misses one or two starts this season, he could still be on track for that. This is a career-long thing. He'd have to have maybe a little bit longer of a career, but he could maybe still do it even if he misses a few starts here or there. There is no room for error. You can't miss 1 minute on the basketball court to try and beat Wilt's record.
And I get that, but I think the more unbreakable record is the one that has to last 20 plus seasons rather than the one that has to last one season. Yes, it's extremely hard to do, but you only need to do it for one season. Whereas to get to 511 wins, you need to do it for 20 and probably more years than that. just to even contend at that point. You know, you look at some of the recent pitchers, you know, CC had 251 career wins. Clayton Kershaw, 223 career wins. These are some of the best pitchers of their generation who aren't even getting to half of Cy Young's record. That is a standard that, you know, not a lot of pitchers today are going to be even able to get to those guys. So when we're looking at over 500, that is just about as impossible as it's going to get.
I think when we look at the modern game of MLB, I could single out a few guys that, you know, could maybe get there. But when I look at the NBA and we're saying Wilt averaged 48 and a half minutes, the leader this year in minutes per game was Tyrese Maxey at 38. And that's a really young player in a system that needed him, a team that doesn't have a bench. Even outside of the perfect circumstances, I just can't imagine who that modern day NBA player would be to go that long. I just don't think that player exists in basketball, and I think that player is more likely to exist in baseball.
Could we agree here that both of you guys are onto something here? Both of those records are probably never going to get.
That's what I was going to say, and I was trying to figure out how to word it. I think both of these records are ridiculously unbreakable. I just think what we're talking about, what's the most unbreakable, and I would give the slightest bit of an edge to the one that has to last an entire career rather than the one that has to last one season.
Jamie, you said it. Neither of these records are probably getting touched anytime soon. We've got to get a few generations forward for some super athletes to come through and maybe some more advances in modern medicine, I guess. But I think Alex, he averaged 30 seconds more than are even in a game. Like, that just is not going to happen. We could see a pitcher born with the arm of steel, but we couldn't see one born with lungs of steel. They couldn't stay out there for 48 and a half minutes.
You know, when it comes to unbreakable records, give me the guy who set the standard for pitching so dominantly that the award for the best pitcher each season is named after him. That's a standard that very few guys are ever going to be able to match up to, let alone the numbers that came with it.
You're watching the Sports Central Showdown.